Welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. After Loki ended a couple of weeks, me and many of my guest hosts have actually been having side conversations about the show, about how it ties in with WandaVision, maybe even Falcon the Winter Soldier, moving forward with other movies in the MCU. And so I just figured, you know what, let's just record a conversation. Unfortunately, most of my guest hosts were not available for this recording. But I do have the pleasure of having join us today my wife Bethany and longtime guest host Chad. So welcome, Bethany.
Hi.
And welcome, Chad.
Hey guys, what's up?
So where do we want to start? Let's section this out so it's not just a hodgepodge of stuff. Do we want to go all the way back and talk about WandaVision, or do we want to talk about Loki first, since it was the catalyst for this whole conversation?
I think we should talk about Loki first, and then because there's the tie-in kind of at the end of Loki, that we can talk about.
I agree. So of course, if you haven't watched Loki, why?
Blake.
Loki ends, and we officially now have our multiverse with the ending of Loki. We have also been, and I know we'll get into this a little bit more, we've been semi-introduced to the next big bad of the MCU with Kang the Conqueror. We did technically see him. We just didn't meet him.
Yeah, an image of him. Yeah.
So let's go with
a question.
Go ahead.
About Kang the Conqueror, because I only know that because of what Laramy's reaction was when we were watching this, and he goes, "Oh, that's the same guy that's going to play Kang the Conqueror."
And notice how I said that. I didn't say it was Kang the Conqueror.
Right.
I said, "Hey, that's the same guy that's going to play Kang the Conqueror."
And so we, other than just we know that that's a bad guy, we know that he's playing that character. We know for sure that that statue was Kang the Conqueror and not some other possible version.
More than likely, because the actual costume he is wearing in the statue that Loki looks at, Chad was actually the first person I heard come up with this, and then I heard several other people, very reminiscent of the ending of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I think that a lot of internet sites stole that from me, so I'm just going to throw that out.
Again,
they've been listening to your conversation.
No,
you were the first.
I immediately thought of that. Like, to me, the ending of Loki is the best. I won't say that Loki's the best series or like thing out of the MCU so far, but that end, in my opinion, was the most well done. It just left you lingering for a second as Loki. You see Loki's face, and then you see the statue and the whole 9 yards, and it was very Planet of the Apes-esque to me, just that gut punch. But
it's the only one that's going to have a second, right? Because the others were just limited series, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
WandaVision, we know. I don't know if they've actually confirmed that Falcon the Winter Soldier won't return, but as of right now, yes. And so, this was because, they flat out told us right there at the end, Loki will return in season 2.
Yeah. Where they did not do that for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
No. But so that's so again, the costume the statue has on is pretty much identical to what Kang the Conqueror wears in the comics.
Now, the only thing that could have given it more of like a stamp of 100% is if he had the headdress on.
The headpiece,
that's really the only thing lacking.
Yeah, considering we didn't have color to see the purple and green kind of look. But he was wearing the purple and green as He Who Remains, so they were going ahead and making a nod to that. Let me ask you this, though, Chad. Do you think he was just He Who Remains? Because I've heard theories that he was also a mix of He Who Remains and Nathaniel Richards.
Well, I don't know about the Nathaniel Richards part. It would be interesting, and it'd be kind of cool if they tie that in later with the coming of Fantastic Four on the horizon, all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I honestly was thrown off. Laramy and I had talked about this several times. I was hoping against hope. I didn't really think it was going to happen, but I thought it was going to be Doctor Doom and Kang. And I like how they did this. The He Who Remains nod was really kind of cool and clever. But then making it a Kang variant. And then looking forward to seeing Kang the Conqueror. It was interesting to listen to him tell the different facets of variant Kang personality. And he's kind of the crazy one. You know, he's been doing this ridiculous job for how many millennia at this point, and is a little bit insane. And nod to oh my gosh, why did I forget the actor's name right as I started saying it? Why am I drawing a blank? But it was amazingly acted. His turns of going from like silly to incredibly serious. I really enjoyed that whole episode, which is crazy when you kind of view it in hindsight. There's just a lot of like sitting around and talking going on, and yet it goes by
that whole
so
episode.
fast. So fast.
Don't tell anyone. I watched it while I was at work. but yeah, he played that like genius, crazy, insane person.
It was very Willy Wonka like to me.
That's literally what I was thinking. It was kind of a Willy Wonka of like, he's been alone for far too long. He's clearly the smartest person possibly ever.
Yeah. Jonathan Majors. Gosh, why was that driving me crazy? Jonathan Majors.
But yeah, all the times when we record and we don't have really detailed notes, we always forget something.
IMDb up at all times.
Stop making sense.
But no, yeah, it was very reminiscent of Willy Wonka, as he wasn't necessarily evil, but he was very like deranged. He was very
just not know where he's going to go next. Just that like he's a wild card. You really don't know what's going to pop out of his mouth next.
Ironically, he had like lost a sense of reality.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting.
While we're here, before we move on to how the ending affects things, Chad, do you want to talk about the connection you think the 6 episodes had with the already current MCU?
The theory of the stones, the Infinity Stones. So I did not come up with this. I saw it on oh man, I wish I could get again talking about taking detailed notes.
I saw it on TikTok.
I did not see it on TikTok, but I read it.
Scholarly journal TikTok.
That's right. And it's a very interesting theory that each of the 6 episodes represent one of the Infinity Stones. And, you know, there's kind of some holes in the theory a little bit, but it does make a lot of sense. And each episode did have a color palette, did seem to at least have some bias toward that particular stone. And I don't know if that's, you know, viewing it in hindsight, you can kind of read into it or what, but it's a very, very interesting theory. I think it's kind of a cool way to wrap up the idea of the Infinity Stones being so ridiculously powerful, and show you just what Kang is capable of. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's storytelling, and they have to convince you that this guy is even more menacing than Thanos was. So what better way to do that than wrap up the Infinity Stone story and tell you just how meaningless they were to this conqueror of space and time kind of thing. So it was kind of a cool theory.
And speaking of going off that even more, David Bedford, who is a previous guest host, actually chimed in on our conversation when we were having it outside of the show. And he actually had a theory that each of these series are also connected to an Infinity Stone. His theory is that WandaVision connects to the red reality stone, which makes sense. Wanda was affecting reality. Yeah. There's a lot of red coloring with her, obviously. Falcon and Winter Soldier, he said, was about power, which would be the purple stone. He did point out some of the purple connections to it. Obviously, Zemo wears a purple mask, and he wants power. And then when Sam finally accepts to be Captain America in his first battle, when he comes into that building, there's kind of a purple hue to the lighting. And then he said that Loki, with its green coloring, with Loki's magic and obviously his outfit, and then the fact that green is the time stone, which is what the show kind of played with.
It's exploring,
the idea of kind of time and space, but the idea of different timelines.
So if we're going to like continue his theory, we know of at least 2 more shows that are upcoming. So there's What If, and I don't know if that would. I mean, I don't
know. Do you count What If? because it's not
Well,
live action.
We'll get into that in a little while, but
Yeah.
I definitely think they're tied together.
Okay.
And then you've got Miss Marvel coming up, and I was trying to...
She-Hulk.
Okay, so there's 6.
And then, of course, Hawkeye.
That's 7. That's... I don't know, so...
Well, no, 3. The 3 current. Then What If, Hawkeye, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel. Yeah, that's 7.
Yeah. I don't know. So maybe you're right. Maybe they'd exclude What If, if that kind of theory holds up and if they continue to try to Infinity Stone everything.
Yeah, because then after that, it goes to Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Which would be the culmination of part of the stories they've been telling.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into that. All the stories they kind of set up, because I think more so than WandaVision, more so than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki clearly is setting the stage for what will become Phase 4 of the MCU.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kevin Feige told us that this was going to be the most pivotal of the shows, that sort of thing. I guess the one I would want to bring up first was, I don't know who originally found did the timestamp and found the footage, but WandaVision and the end of Loki lining up so perfectly. And so I have not done this myself. I don't know for sure that the times line up. It could be a giant internet hoax, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I've seen it on the internet. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, this was actually just released
last
2 or 3 days ago. Yeah. Where someone, and how you thought to do this,
I think it was somebody who had been working in Loki. He was like, nobody's noticed this yet.
Yeah, so we're just going to leak it. Yeah.
And they're going to tell everyone else.
So apparently if you start the last episode of WandaVision, the last episode of Loki at the exact same time,
like you do,
then when it reaches the point that Wanda becomes the Scarlet Witch, that is the exact same moment as when He Who Remains senses something happening and
no
then
longer
realizes
knows what's coming.
Because he says we've gone through the threshold.
Yeah.
So apparently, since we already know that Wanda is if not the Nexus being, then she apparently, once she became Scarlet Witch, she changed everything in terms of his connection to the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And they happen at the exact same moment. You see him stop and react to something that we don't see. I even noticed that the window behind him starts to have a red glow.
Mm-hmm.
And then he even picks up like a pen or something and drops it at the exact same moment that Agatha falls in WandaVision. So that's what we're talking about. So this is perfectly timed little thing, and
that can't just be an accident. And
no.
To Bethany's credit, that Marvel may have just leaked it, but I almost think that we're all fanboying out to the point that somebody did the math and figured it out. But
I think Chad
that's not
just leaked that he's the one that came up with it. He's the fanboy that figured it out, and he wants the credit, and we give it to you, Chad.
I kind of wish that I had figured that out, but no.
If only.
But I would be the one with the YouTube channel making all the money now. But no, and I that certainly doesn't seem accidental to me. And we were already set up with Wanda kind of breaking a reality in her own show, and then we know that she's on the verge of doing something. I don't know what's the right word. Is there ethical in the Marvel universe? I don't know, but she's...
Well, considering they're going to call it Multiverse of Madness, I would say she's going to do something catastrophic.
Yeah,
right.
But we'll find out. There were a lot of scenes going right into that, though, that were very telling, in my opinion. What did you think about the entryway to the Citadel? There are the 3 Time Lords. There's the statue of the 3 Time Lords, and there's a 4th that's destroyed. And this has been haunting me. I want to know what that 4th character is. I
mean, the only thing I can think of is that maybe it was Kang.
Yeah.
And that when I guess you would assume Kang again was the Conqueror, and when the original multiverse war happened, and he was quote unquote defeated or put away, however it actually worked out, and He Who Remains took over, that they toppled that statue. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's just my theory.
I got the feeling that the Time Lords were kind of a mask for He Who Remains, in the sense of you definitely get that he realizes that what he's doing is not moral, that he is having to do moral evil for greater good, like in that whole conversation with Sylvie and everything.
He literally says that at one point.
Yeah.
Like he says I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, no, it's not ethical, but it's for the best.
Right. And I kind of think that that's where the Time Lords came from. So, yeah, I don't know, because I thought kind of the same as you were saying, Laramy, but I'm not sure, because I think the Time Lords were just a mask. That, he wouldn't have transposed his real self into statues with things that were a creation just to... Because he didn't want to be known for what he's doing with the TVA. And I think that's the most telling thing when you see the statue of Kang at the end of the show, is that no, this is a guy who is a megalomaniac. Like, he wants to be known as the guy who conquered time and runs everything. Whereas the crazy but generally speaking benevolent He Who Remains wanted to hide himself behind it. He didn't want to be known for the bad things that he was having to do, in his mind at least, to save the universe from worse versions of himself, which that's a whole psychological thing in and of itself. But, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
So you do think the Timekeepers never existed?
Yeah, with the argument I'm making, they're completely just a show so that He Who Remains is not the face of the TVA.
Yeah. It's the wizard from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Because another thought popped into my head is, what if the Timekeepers were at one point real? This is where I'm going to kind of move the conversation to how this is going to affect other shows. What if the fourth one is the Watcher?
Yeah. Man, I'm super excited for that show. Like, already was very much looking forward to it. And then it was one of the first things that I thought of at the end of Loki was like, oh my gosh, does that mean that these are real stories now?
Yeah. What if it's canon now?
Yeah. Well, not just canon. I mean, it's no longer what if. Like, are we going to see any of those characters pulled into the MCU? Is Peggy Carter going to return to the MCU as Captain Carter? Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't be against some of that. Yeah. Mm-mm. Yeah, because that's the thing. As soon as we have a multiverse, and the very next show is what if, it really makes you think: are these stories from the other timelines? Like, are these Nexus events that caused a different outcome? And I think the Captain Carter one has been kind of the focal
face
point
of it,
of the face of the show, because people always go back to the fact that in the original Captain America movie, when Tommy Lee Jones and I forgot the doctor's name, but when the two of them are talking about it being Steve, and then he throws the grenade, Steve's not the only one that goes for the grenade.
Right.
Peggy moves for the grenade too. It's just Steve gets to it first.
Yep.
And so that's your Nexus event right there. What if Peggy actually did get to it first?
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to some of those side stories. And I also, so to back up to your original question, I don't think the Watcher is one of the Time Lords or the Timekeepers. We're mixing up Doctor Who stuff here. The Time
I was
Lords.
wondering about that.
No.
I was like, I'm not going to say anything because I don't know.
I'm not even a Whovian, but yeah. So the Timekeepers. I don't think he's a timekeeper because I think he's going to tie in more with the Celestials and the Eternals coming up. So I really have not gone back to look at this, but I'm pretty sure the Watcher is a Celestial. So
I think you're right, yeah.
So, which, I mean, I guess doesn't technically discount him from also having been one of the timekeepers, but I don't necessarily think that lines up. But to your credit, I think that I know that I'm going to be watching What If very closely, listening to the Watcher, because I think we're going to be given clues on multiversal rules through this show, if that makes sense.
Well, if the Watcher is voiced by Jonathan Majors, then done.
No, it's not Jonathan Majors.
I know
it's Jeffrey
Wright.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright. Which he can voice anything as far as I'm concerned. Like, just he's incredible.
Let's go back to WandaVision real quick. So another thing that came up on the internet was that the final scene in WandaVision has been changed. Yeah. And there are people who again have side by side. Part of me again went, wait, if it changed, how do you still have the original one? But they had the original,
because of someone from Marvel.
Yeah, with the new one. And when they're zooming in on the cabin
Conspiracy theory
that Wanda is in, first thing is people are going, there's more trees. And I'm going, okay. But apparently there are more trees. But then there is this like ghost-like figure that is moving very quickly down the mountain and headed towards the cabin. And that has been added in. It's brand new. And so people think something in Loki caused that to happen. The question is who is it? Of course, the number one on the list, I think, it's Doctor Strange. But could it be someone else? Do we have any other theories as to could it be someone else?
When did it change? Have they said?
It changed after,
like,
was it
episode 3 or 4 of Loki?
Yeah, I think it was 4.
Huh.
So I can't think of anything that happened in that particular episode other than when Loki and Lady Loki, Sylvie, whatever you want to call her, when they had their Nexus event.
Yeah, which I'm still fuzzy on, but...
They were going to kiss, and they're the same person.
Yeah, still don't know.
Imagine kissing yourself, Chad.
But they were going to also
the world
die.
explode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it was... I don't know, man. Like, He Who Remains kind of explains it, but I still am not 100% tracking
clear. Yeah.
What happened there. But, smarter people than me wrote it, so I'm good with that. I don't know. Like, I was with you. I was trying to think of something in that episode that could have been the catalyst there. I thought in the sense of the Nexus event happens and they get captured and brought back to the TVA. So the fact that they're going to bring the TVA down, is that the event that changes things? And so either Doctor Strange or Vision or whatever being needs to find Wanda at this point. I don't know. That's still one of those weird ones where I'm like, is it different? I don't know. Like, because you can't record Disney Plus, so
that one's a lot harder because you really
tried to take a screenshot at one point and it would not let me.
You really just have to rely on these videos you're seeing online, because there's no way that just a regular person can go, oh wait, I see it, but you can't now compare it to the original because that quote unquote doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, I want to believe it,
and I rented it on DVD.
Yeah.
I want to believe it because I want to think that I would notice things, and I watched the end of that several times looking for stuff. But I just don't know that I watched that particular scene of it that close, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Have you gone back and watched it since the supposed change?
Yeah,
and you see it now?
Yep, but I don't know if I'm having a Mandela effect or what, but
We've entered a different timeline.
It's created a Nexus event, and it's deviated from the sacred timeline.
That's right.
Yeah.
So my kind of theory of what that Nexus event is it's kind of one of those things of like, can God build a rock so heavy he can't push it type situations where, the reason it was a Nexus event because that was the moment the TVA came to get them. Because when the TVA came to get them, that was when everything started to, when the TVA started to break down.
Well, I also think that it was a moment where two Lokis realized that they're not alone.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, deeper, that was a Nexus event because the TVA came to get them.
The
TVA came... I get it. That's why it's a weird circle thing.
A paradox.
If they had just left them there, the TVA would have continued to go on the way it has always gone on. But because the TVA
didn't know where they were.
Exactly.
They came to get them because of the Nexus event.
Time is a Jeremy Bearimy. It is all squiggly wiggly. So what we do, does any of this make sense?
I get what you're trying to say, but like Chad said, the TVA didn't show up until they saw the Nexus event.
Because they had to. But I think the Nexus event was because they were going to show up.
I think from He Who Remains' point, I almost think that He Who Remains manipulated that because he clearly was looking for those two Lokis to make a decision that would prove them worthy of being his potential successor. Is kind of the way he's talking about that. And I think that when they learned to empathize with one another, because I think that's because that was my big question is why is he so interested in these two Lokis? It's because he's insane from being alone. Yeah. So when he saw these two people that he thinks has the potential to replace him, and now they've connected, he goes, okay, now they're connected, they can make it where I have failed, is what I think happened. And he manipulated that event so that the TVA would then find them. That was the Nexus event, was that they were legitimate potential replacements for He Who Remains at that point.
So he created the Nexus. They didn't actually cause a Nexus event. He created the Nexus event.
That's kind of what I think, but
okay,
just working backwards from what he said about it.
All right, so let's completely change subject, and then we can come back around because I think it does loop back around. Because it all
ties together. Yeah, it's spaghetti.
It's all a big timey-wimey.
So let's talk about Black Widow. Black Widow has been released. We have all seen Black Widow. Of course, this is you can't really call it a prequel because it does occur after we have met her.
It's a midquel.
It occurs after Civil War, before Infinity War.
It's a dayquil.
And sure. And we just get to see, Black Widow on her own little story. Do you think, we'll talk about the end credit scene in a moment. Let's just talk about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this movie is important to the MCU? Or do you think it was just and I don't mean any disrespect to this. Do you think it was just a fan service?
I think it was important. I think it's setting up Yelena to become a part of the Avengers. I think it kind of explains a lot of what Natasha's motivation was during Endgame.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Endgame was when she died.
Yes. Because in my theory, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but Yelena, possibly even her parents, quote unquote, dusted. And that was the only family, or that was half of her family. So she died to give her family life, or in the attempt to get her family life. And then it's bringing in Yelena into, I think, what will have it. I think she's going to go after Hawkeye. She's going to fight him, and then he's going to win her over. And then she's going to be the new, female checkmark on the diversity list for the Avengers.
I will agree with you on maybe 60% of that.
No, yeah, I think you're definitely mining some good veins there in the sense. I mean, I don't think it was an accident that they called all of the girls widows. So I think it kind of even set it up in the language that it's transferable, that there can be another Black Widow, that it's not just Natasha Romanoff, that sort of thing. And
Yelena did it in the comics. Yelena became the Black Widow in the comics.
So I think they're setting that up exactly like you're talking about. I think it was a stepping stone movie. So I guess like I'm kind of in between in what you're saying. It. I don't think it was just this throwaway fan service movie, but I also don't think that it definitely rolled certain balls down the path for sure. I think there's some interesting stuff coming out of it. So one weird little scene that I want to talk about that maybe I just haven't dug deep enough on the internet, but I've seen nobody mention this. Why does Taskmaster do the T'Challa pose to begin combat and has the same claws? So we're told that she's a perfect mimic of fighting styles. So it seems to indicate...
Spoiler alert that you're using that pronoun for Taskmaster.
Oh, yeah, sorry. If you're listening to this, let's really hope that you've watched some stuff. So, has Taskmaster fought T'Challa?
I don't think so, because when we first are introduced to Taskmaster, if you remember, Taskmaster is watching the airport fight from Civil War. So I think it's just a matter of just watching video. Like, I don't think that Taskmaster has
That's
actually
a boring
theory.
contact. Laramie, I'm going to stick with mine. I'm just kidding.
Look,
totally
I'm
joking.
not. Yeah, I would love for there to be more to Taskmaster. Taskmaster. That was my one gripe about this movie.
I have a few, but
that's my main one. That's my number one.
Yeah,
is that they did not who is a great villain in the MCU.
Yep.
To just make them a one and done villain, as far as we know. I mean, she obviously wasn't killed at the end,
right?
So as far as we know,
I don't know. I kind of think we'll see her again, but but will we see her again the same way we saw Crossbones at the beginning of of Civil War? Yeah, that one was another good villain thrown away. I don't know, man. It was that was kind of disappointing. Well, I guess the other disappointment also leads into some interesting stuff. What in the world is General Ross doing in this movie? He really serves zero purpose, and there's no reason for him to be there.
I think he's a timestamp of, like, just so you know when this is occurring.
Maybe.
I think that's really
in a way.
So, but at the end of the movie, okay, like, I get that we're watching a superhero movie. There's suspended disbelief. I don't need everything to work out in the real world. But with that said, why does General Ross get to a crash site that's happening, who knows where in the world? He shows up, as far as we know, surrounds Natasha Romanoff. And, I mean, obviously we're spoiling the crap out of this movie, and then, bam, just flashes forward 2 weeks and she's just doing something else, getting on a jet. There's no explanation of what Ross was doing there, why he lets Natasha Romanoff go.
Yeah, because it wasn't nothing. Like she was hiding. Like,
no, she was staying behind almost as
she was
bait.
standing. They could see her. They were only a few yards away.
Right.
And so, you think, okay, they're gonna capture her, and we got to figure out how she escaped to the events of Infinity War or whatnot. But nope, we don't get to see any of that. She got away somehow.
I mean, with that said, it makes no sense in and of itself in this movie, but I think really the only reason you do that is to bring General Thunderbolt Ross back to the front. Because another ball
guys,
that
do you remember this guy?
Well, but I think where Chad is headed is the end credit scene.
Yeah. So one of the balls that this movie's got to push down the road is something that was started. I really kind of think it starts to really kick off in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Even though this movie was supposed to come out first.
Zemo. Correct. Which, let me talk about that for a second. If we're going to jump to the end credit scene. So we're talking about Thunderbolt Ross, the potential of the Thunderbolts, which I'm super on board with. So, a Suicide Squad of the Marvel Universe kind of thing. That end credit scene, does that make any sense to you if it had been released before Falcon and Winter Soldier?
No. No.
Do you think it would have been a different scene? Like maybe there was more to it originally?
But the thing was, Falcon and the Winter Soldier had Valentina
introduce
in
herself.
Several episodes.
Yeah.
So that we got to kind of meet her and kind of realize that something was shady about her. Because I love when she hands his wife just a blank note business card.
Yeah.
We know something's up. When she shows up at the end in the credit scene in Black Widow, if you haven't watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I would guarantee you there was probably a good chunk of the audience who had not.
Yeah.
To go, who was that? Well, what was going on?
Why is the lady from Seinfeld on this? Yeah.
Although.
Why is the Veep here?
Yeah. Although, to speak on the side of maybe, let's remember that end of Iron Man, we were introduced to Nick Fury, and if you didn't know comics, you had no idea who Samuel L. Jackson was.
I mean, I was going to say that's not the first time MCU movies have done that, where they introduce a character where if you know the comics, because there have been plenty of times I've been sitting there watching an end credit scene, something happens, and Laramy goes, and grabs my arm.
Sure,
and I go, what is it? And then he has to give me an entire backstory history lesson for the next 45 minutes on why this was important.
But to be fair, the end of Iron Man, he says, Fury shows up and says, let me talk to you about the Avengers Initiative.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you were watching Iron Man in the first place, you probably had at least a halfway idea of the Avengers. Yeah. So
this lady did not.
Nothing.
Well,
she gave
but
nothing.
Let me throw another one at you then, going with that kind of the same idea. End of Infinity War. Nick Fury's pager shows the Captain Marvel logo.
Yeah.
That was another example.
There's no words, no anything, just Captain Marvel logo.
I said, Laramy, what is that? And he goes, it's Captain Marvel. And I said, what's a Captain Marvel?
You mean Shazam? No.
Yeah. Even for end credits for Marvel, though, this one's kind of dry. Like, they don't give you much to go on if you hadn't had Falcon and Winter Soldier first. Which, total sidebar, this is just kind of an inside baseball thing. And unless somebody at Marvel just gives an interview about it one day, we'll never know the truth. I kind of wonder if, to what Laramy was saying just a minute ago, if they didn't go back and film more scenes with her than were originally anticipated in Falcon and Winter Soldier, because they kind of realized that. Because Falcon and Winter Soldier had to be completely changed with COVID. They've been pretty open about that it was actually about a pandemic, and so it had to be virtually completely rewritten kind of at the last minute. And so part of me is like, did somebody go, hey guys, this would be a real good opportunity to flesh out this Valentina lady a little bit before we just cold show it?
Well, so with that being said, let me throw this at you. Do you think the whole Valentina character wasn't added until after? Because have you heard that the director said this was not the original end credit scene?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if both got kind of rearranged with schedules being changed once everything started kind of falling apart with COVID and all that sort of thing. I mean, that makes sense, and they've got the money to do it. It's not like Marvel's hurting to fly a couple actors in for a day or so, but I don't know.
So going back, did you hear? And I'm pretty sure it was the director that said this. Did you hear about the other end credit scene that he had to change?
No, I'm not remembering what you're talking about.
So what I read, and again, I'm not going to say this is legitimate, but I did read this online, was that the intended idea was that when Yelena is at the tombstone and she whistles, that you would actually hear the whistle reply, and then that's when it would cut off.
I don't like that, though.
So it would be
So
kind of
who
like,
would be whistling?
well, that's the
back
thing.
to
It would
her?
be kind of like the end of Inception. Like, is it because there's also the theory that if Captain America at the end of Endgame went back to return all of the stones at the exact moment they were taken, and the whole purpose of the Soul Stone is a soul for a soul, then if he's returning it, does that not mean
She comes back.
Black Widow comes back?
I don't know.
So there's a theory, and even the fact that we now have a multiverse. I mean, could there not be another Natasha?
Right, yeah. But you don't have Loki at that point. Like, if it had really been released first with that whistle scene, it would be, a year and a half later when Loki happens and you go, oh, that could have... And that, don't get me wrong, Marvel set further stuff out, than a year and a half before, but...
Well, and let's also remember they've changed times, too, because Spider-Man Far From Home was supposed to be 8 years later, and then they went, wait, 8 years is too far.
Yeah.
So they changed it back to 5 years later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't know how far after the events of Endgame Yelena is making it to that tombstone. So, I mean, we don't.
No. But with the end credit scene that we do have to kind of steer this ship back to what we were talking about originally, the only explanation that makes any sense that you bring General Ross back into this is to create the Thunderbolts. Yeah. So, which it seems like, you at least have two members of that have kind of signed on at this point, if Valentina's the linchpin. So you've got Yelena, you've got our other Captain America, and
U.S. agent.
Yeah, U.S. agent. Yeah, they did actually call him that at the end of the...
Yep, she calls him that, yeah.
So, and then in theory, Zemo should get drug into that, which I'm super on board with. He needs to come back.
Oh, man, he established himself as such a fun character in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
And he has been a member of the Thunderbolts in the comics.
Right.
It was his Thunderbolts. I mean...
Well, because, after Winter Soldier, you were just like, okay, this guy, he makes a point, but I don't care about him. After Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you were like, oh, I get him. Yeah. And I like him, and he's got a really fun personality. I want to watch him dance again.
And they gave him a bit of a redemptive arc.
Yeah.
Besides the dancing. We all know that dancing is redemptive. But
we all know that.
As movie and television has shown us many times.
If I've learned one thing from the documentary Footloose, it's that dancing is not a crime.
That's right.
So moving forward, we got Hawkeye's series coming,
which is obviously plugged into that end credit scene.
Yeah, and also Hawkeye has been a Thunderbolt.
Yeah. So you gotta. So the other one that they've been sneaky, not even that sneaky, setting up. And so Laramy asked me before we started filming whether I thought it was going to be Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers. And I really think it's going to be Thunderbolts. For one, they've made Ross a key centerpiece again with this. Mm-hmm. But B, I think they're bringing the Young Avengers. And I think it gets confusing in a movie universe if you've got Dark Avengers, the Avengers, and the Young Avengers. Yeah. And, Thor may have the Revengers still going on somewhere, so who knows.
And apparently Doctor Who is showing up. I missed that part, but that's what Chad was talking about.
Nice. So, yeah, I think the Young Avengers are also being set up. I mean, you have had, there's so many characters. But
Wiccan and Speed from WandaVision.
Right. You've got oh man.
What does he call himself?
Kid Loki.
No. Well, yeah, you got Kid Loki.
You got Kid Loki from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier. Trying to think of what his name was.
The replacement Captain America's grandson. I'm drawing a total blank on those characters' names.
I am too.
Yeah.
But he is a Young Avenger, so you've got that guy already set up.
I did not know that was going to be a character.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of Young Avengers are already peeking their heads out, and of course, a key Young Avenger is the new Hawkeye. So this show, that show should be kicking off. Yeah, should be kicking off the Young Avengers.
And I mean, we could even go Miss Marvel.
Yep.
I mean, she's getting her own series, and she'll be probably one of the first ones in a movie with the Marvels, Captain Marvel 2. So, yeah, we're definitely leading towards Young Avengers. And then this Thunderbolts thing, which going back off of, which is why, this goes into why I was thinking Dark Avengers 2, is that we've got the Shang-Chi movie coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already shown in one of the trailers, you get a quick glimpse of Abomination.
Yeah.
And so even though you would more tie Abomination in with Dark Avengers, you now question, could he, since he technically is a soldier, could he be a Thunderbolt in the MCU?
And they've already tied him directly to General Ross. I mean, I guess if you believe that the Hulk movie is part of the MCU, which there's some argument about.
No. Incredible Hulk, yes.
Yes. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think Abomination is also going to be included in that. So they're setting up so much. It's ridiculous.
All right, so let's go after the next thing, because here's where I became the Marvel nerd geek that a lot of people online did. Why have we not gotten a trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home yet? Because, and here's why I say this. So it's coming out in December. It is now the end of July. And since we already kind of have a theory that it's going to tie into the Spider-Verse, which is technically the multiverse, it made sense that they would hold off on the trailer until after the end of Loki. But it has now been, as of this recording, 2 weeks since the end of Loki, and we still don't have a Spider-Man trailer.
I don't know. Is there... maybe they just can't cut that one to not spoil it. I don't...
There's got to be... You got to give us something, though.
Maybe they're still going to camp and learning iMovie and how to make a movie trailer. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's because it's been confirmed that Jamie Foxx's Electro will be in this movie. It's been confirmed that Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus will be in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's the rampant theories that Andrew Garfield and
Tobey
Maguire will be in this movie. It's also been, I think, confirmed that Doctor Strange will make an appearance in this movie. And that one, I don't know if it's been confirmed. But like I said, the Jamie Foxx and the Alfred Molina has been.
Right.
Like the two of them themselves have said they're in the movie.
The two of them who are worse at keeping secrets than
No, the two of them are too big of stars to care about the Marvel snipers. So
you can't touch me. I'm feminist icon Alfred Molina.
So yeah, that's my thing, is give us something. The movie comes out in 3.5 months, 4 months. Give us something. That's really where I'm at. I mean, we sometimes see trailers for movies a year in advance. And we're now talking, it's almost August. Movie comes out in December.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten a teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Marvel just realizes they don't even need to spend money on trailers anymore. They're like, you're coming to see this. Let's be honest.
You'll come to see it.
They're still trying to figure out the TikTok algorithm. And so it's on TikTok. It's just no one can see it for some reason.
Did you get pulled in with that trailer release that was a joke? The hoax trailer? Somebody made a Sony official account, and they called it something so good that it fooled the internet. Like, everybody went on and was like, "Oh, sweet, it finally dropped." It totally went viral. I'm super shocked you haven't seen this, and it's just I can't even remember what the trailer is, but it's
actually,
almost
I think
instantly.
I have.
Oh, it's the Rickroll thing. Like, it goes, you get to see Tobey Maguire for a minute, and you're like, "Oh my god!" And then it's just the whole.
Maybe I didn't.
You literally get Rickrolled, and it was amazing.
I did see one, but they were clearly using footage from the other.
Yeah, just a
Spider-Man
fan
movies.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that one. Okay, and I guess we could end this with talking about where do we think we're now headed with the next? Because obviously Shang-Chi is going to be a side movie. He might come back in later, but I see it the same way we see with Black Widow. Like, it's going to sprinkle in something,
Sure.
but it's going to be a side movie. So our next big one is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which clearly Loki was setting up for.
No.
There's now even rumor that Tom Hiddleston will be in the movie,
Right.
Which matches up with I wish I knew the exact number. There's a famous comic book cover that actually shows Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and Loki teaming up. This is kind of hard to ask. Where do we see this going? And how do we see this affecting the whole rest of the movies? How do we see this affecting the next Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever? How do we see this affecting the Marvels? How do we see this affecting the Eternals? Which actually, I guess we're going to get the Eternals before we get Doctor Strange, because the Eternals will come out, November?
Right. And so, exactly to the point, that has been interesting, because in the Eternals trailer, you famously hear them say, we've never interfered in human affairs, and there's been so many memes and gifs and everything about, like, they didn't interfere when Thanos showed up and wiped out half the universe. Like, thanks a lot. Why are you showing up now? Is it the unraveling of time that has forced them out of semi-retirement? That sort of thing. So I think that Eternals is going to play into this far more than we have till now been led to believe. So I think Loki... I personally think Loki set that up immediately. So I think we'll find out some cool stuff there. I was trying to remember the timeline. Do you think we're going to get Doctor Strange before or after season 2 of Loki, though?
See, yeah, I think I may have even asked you that question when we were talking. I think we have to have season 2 of Loki before Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see Loki being in, or whatever events happen in the Multiverse of Madness, and then we just go back to Loki doing his own little thing with the timelines and all that.
Right.
Because clearly, when Loki was pushed into the door and ended up in the TVA, he's in a different TVA. Right. He's in a TVA from another timeline.
Well, so that's an interesting one. And so I was in a super nerd argument actually earlier today on the new Rockstars channel, because they were like talking about how this is a different timeline TVA because they're because of the old multiverse war is rehashed and all this kind of stuff. But you're not thinking like time linear, or I can't even say that word, linearly, because that's a future war. So I think what you saw at the end scene of that was everything immediately changed in the past for the TVA, because a war has been won in the future. We have a different Kang variant who came out on top this time, is my theory. So I think there's only one TVA. I think it's just that we have a different ruler thereof, because the war played out differently this time, with He Who Remains having kind of bid it in the end of our show. So is my working theory there. So I still think that the TVA and the Citadel at the end of time are kind of islands in the stream of time flow, however you want to call that. I agree with you, though, that I same exact statement. Like, how do you have Loki as part of Doctor Strange and then like doing his own thing? So to back up a little bit, so is that Loki finding Wanda at the end of WandaVision in the post-credit scene? Or Sylvie, maybe?
Sylvie, I could give you. I don't think it's Loki.
I just checked out for a second and watched it.
Nice.
I don't think it was
and I saw it.
Loki. And you know what? I honestly, no. I don't think it was Loki or Sylvie. just because of the way it moves.
Uh-huh.
Loki or
It
Sylvie
does move
would,
like a ghost.
which I go with Doctor Strange. I go with White Vision.
Yeah.
But Loki
White Vision.
and Sylvie would have just like appeared. Like they would have used a portal,
Sure.
like they're doing in the Loki series. Like
Yeah.
they wouldn't be flying in
White
the way
Vision
that they're flying
makes the
in.
most sense, just the way it looks and the way it moved.
Yeah, that's always been my thought, that it was Vision finding her, but why is totally unexplained, because he's one of the ones that you go, whoa, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Like, but
So I think so we got to have Loki season 2 before we have Doctor Strange 2. Now, do we in Loki season 2, do we keep Kang unseen because he's supposed to not, we assume he's not supposed to be revealed until Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? How do you have, like, who are they going after? What are they doing in season 2 if they're not going to confront Kang at the end?
I don't know.
Good answer.
Well, I think part of it is semi-obvious, in the sense that I think part of it is going to be Loki looking for Sylvie, because we are left totally unaware of what has happened to her. She is very much in the wind right now. So how did being at that extreme nexus point affect her? Like, can she escape? Is she
A prisoner of Kang?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Being forced to be a minion of him, like all that sort of stuff. I think
she become Enchantress.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
And maybe she's the villain of season 2.
That'd be great. I think that we still have to hunt down, oh my gosh, Renslayer.
Yeah.
Because she also just kind of up and disappears. So I don't know. I think there's plenty of stuff they can do in season 2, and obviously they're going to have to move this story. I think we're going to get a lot of hints of who Kang is. So they're going to use that much in the way we had all the little snippets of Thanos through other movies until he became the big bad. I think they're setting the table in that sense. This will give them a good chance to flesh out who this variant of Kang is and what he does and how he operates.
All right, so final thing, we'll close this out because this is going to be a longer little bonus episode for people. But going back to a previous conversation, where do we see the Thunderbolts and the Young Avengers showing up?
Avengers Crowded War.
Like, is that Secret Invasion, or is it Phase 5? Because we've pretty much been told everything that's going to be in Phase 4.
Yeah.
So how long? And I mean, Phase 4, we're talking about another 4 years to finish out Phase 4. So, do the Young Avengers and the Thunderbolts wait another phase, or do they stay on Disney Plus and show up in Secret Invasion?
I don't know that we've been given all of the TV shows for all of Phase 4. Like, the movie schedule is one thing. Like, that stuff has to get booked out a little further and all that sort of stuff. We just have kind of the next year's worth of TV that's scheduled. So I think that both of those projects do well in the Disney Plus TV series thing, limited run kind of show.
So you don't think they show up in the films of the MCU? You think they remain on the series? The Disney Plus series?
I don't think there's a hard line on that anymore. I think that's very much a blurred thing. So I think, they very well could, the Thunderbolts pop up. Gosh, I'm trying to think of a movie that particular team would work in that's on the board right now. But, pick a movie. They show up in that one. Young Avengers show up in a different movie as just a side story kind of thing. But no, I don't think it doesn't seem like they're getting their own film or are going to be a major plot line in any given movie. But I very much could see them 2 years from now having their own limited series Disney Plus shows. Because, I mean, let's be honest, it's business. These shows were the proof. They had to prove theory first. So clearly they've done incredibly well. If you just go by how much buzz Disney Plus has gotten, I mean, name another studio that's gotten more bang for their buck. Between The Mandalorian and the Marvel shows, Disney Plus has such a small catalog compared to other streaming services, and I don't know anybody who doesn't have Disney Plus, kind of thing. So
they either have it or they have someone's password.
Let's not go telling people's secrets.
We
Bethany.
do not condone that on moving panels. We do not
Dear
support that.
Mr. Disney.
Not support.
When I said that, I was talking about other people.
Yeah.
Definitely not me or anyone who's been involved with moving panels. I deeply apologize. Sincerely, Chad Smith.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. This is obviously a conversation that, could just go on and on because there's just so much. Again, we're going into the next Disney Plus series. What if? What if this is what happens next? What if this goes on? So we'll obviously probably come back after another turn with the next movies or anything else that gives us
with more confusing theories.
Yeah, it gives us more pause and thought. Look, one day it will be Mephisto. So
I'm gonna get Paul Feige on the phone.
I do want to
never Mephisto.
Bethany, I do want to point out one thing. Me and Laramy were texting back and forth, and we were talking about the time stuff, and he just stopped the conversation with, "This is making my head hurt."
Yeah.
We just had to stop.
Yeah.
So we'll end the conversation here. Continue listening. We got some great episodes coming up. Chad and I are actually going to be back in probably about a month to actually talk about Shang-Chi, because we know that he is one of the lesser known characters. So before the movie comes out, we want to give you kind of a little synopsis, overview of that character, so you can be a little bit more prepared as you go into that movie. My daughter, Ruby, joined me for the first time as we do Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So tune in for all of that. We are finishing up year 1 of Moving Panels and about to start into year 2. We hope that you continue to join us. But for today, I want to thank Chad, I want to thank Bethany, and I want to thank everybody for listening. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Man, comic book titles are confusing. You said, we're here at year 1, and I was like, we're not doing year 1 yet.
Yeah, we're phase 1.
Hello movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more. As well as some other cult classics and even lesser-known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now-defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.